I'd like to say welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for joining. Absolutely delighted to have you join us on our Communicating Effectively with during this tricky time. This series is in conjunction with Homes for Scotland and Industrial Biotechnology Innovation Centre, both organisations of which have been hugely supportive of perceptive communicators generally, but also in really just trying to give something back. We are all about supporting our clients in terms of communicating effectively, but hopefully through this series we can actually have an even wider impact than just purely our clients. We do have a LinkedIn group as well, which will be is open to everyone to join, and it's just basically about communicating effectively during COVID. And I'll put a little link on the screen. There you go. That's the link there. So we've shared that on our emails about this webinar, and we'll continue to do that. I would say that this is definitely a webinar series, and that we will be doing another webinar 3 weeks today, all about communicating effectively as we come out of the other side of lockdown. We'll probably get a wee bit more time now, given Nicola Sturgeon's announcement today. So that's really what we're going to do. So we're just going to spend a few minutes just introducing you to Perceptive and the panellists, and thank you so much to the panellists for joining us and being able to share their insights. I always think it's good to get a range of different views, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Then we'll talk a bit about priorities for social media. We've had some great questions, thank you very much, around LinkedIn particularly. We'll try to answer as many of those as possible. I've had a number of those questions for a few days now, so I've tried to build that into the points I'm making in the presentation, but please feel free to ask a question if it's not covered, and we'll do a Q&A with the panel at the end. We're going to try and answer all the questions, but if we don't, we'll definitely share the Q&As from the meeting, and we'll share that with some top tips as well, and that will be available to you through our LinkedIn group too. But I would really encourage you, we'll talk a bit about LinkedIn groups later on in the webinar, but one of the things I would say is that please do participate in the group. You know, we don't have all the answers, and probably something that works well for you could be shared as best practice elsewhere, so really would appreciate your input to that. Thank you very much. So keen to make this as interactive as possible, so I'm going to launch our first poll. Hopefully everyone should be able to see that shortly. So can I get you to vote on this, please? Let's spend a minute or two. Just let you know, there's 3 questions there, so that's most people have voted. Okay, right, so that's most people have voted. Right, I'm going to end the polling and I'm going to share your results. So, can everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so unsurprisingly, we're spending more time on social media in lockdown. That absolutely backs up our stats. So during Q1, LinkedIn usage is up 22%. I think though that only tells probably part of the story, and we'll come on to it later, how people are using social media maybe differently. I think that they're probably more motivated perhaps towards what they can do during this lockdown time, and it's interesting to see that people are looking at developing their skills on behalf of the organisation and themselves, so there's a bit of both there, and I would say that's absolutely a great opportunity for you. And the main reason seems to be raising your profile. So that's going to be a big focus of the webinar today, so that's great. I'm delighted with that, and we'll talk about some other things like keeping in touch and maintaining awareness. And we actually had some discussion just before the webinar started where Hazel Davis of Cruden was talking about actually using it as a monitoring tool. So Hazel will come on to talk about that. Okay, I'll just close that down. Okay, this has been a little bit slow for some reason. Okay, so the panels today from Perceptive are myself. I'm Julie Molesdale. I set up Perceptive 14 years ago now, after being a client for 15 years and being pretty frustrated that a lot of organisations that I worked with, communications consultancies in London, internationally, and even in Scotland, would send in the big funds to pitch for the work, and then as soon as your back was turned, it was someone much more junior. So nothing against younger people, but it's quite a different level of service if you're expecting the big guns to deliver the work, and it was actually someone much more junior who delivers that. The other thing, so we've deliberately set Perceptive up as being a group of experts, experienced people, all of whom have at least 10 years in their relevant field. The only exception to that is our social media expert, who actually does have to be a bit younger to understand to be that digital native. The other difference with Perceptive is that we only specialise in just a few areas, so we don't try to spread ourselves too thinly. I'm joined by the very able expert, Leslie Ferguson, Communications Director with Perceptive. Leslie's been with Perceptive almost since the beginning and works on a variety of different clients across marketing, research, PR, social media, and is absolutely my right-hand woman. So thank you, Leslie, for joining.
No problem.
I mentioned that we are involved with a few different areas. So construction and property has probably been our biggest area right from the start. We work with those who provide services to the property sector, like architects like BDP. We work with housing associations. We work with major contractors like Kier. We work with obviously Scott Frame and house builders like Cruden and McTaggart and Mickle and Briar Home. So it's right across the spectrum. We're also really involved with economic development in a variety of different ways, whether it's through organisations like Homes for Scotland or Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, or Scotland's largest urban regeneration company, Clyde Gateway. So we're really passionate about making a difference. So, you know, anyone can get column inches, but unless it makes a difference to the organisation's results or the economy, it's just not as worthwhile. And over the last few years, we've moved more into life sciences, healthcare and biotechnology. And one of the very first clients we started working with in this area was the lovely Dr. Diane Harbison. And we worked with Diane at BioCity, and we did an integrated campaign. Gosh, that was 5 years ago now, so you were light years ahead of your time, Diane. We did an integrated social media, PR and public affairs campaign to secure enterprise area status for BioCity, which we were told might not happen at all. And a good day will take 3 years, and actually we managed to achieve it within 9 months. And that was because of the integration with social media. Thanks to my amazing team and the great work we get to do with clients, we are multi-award winning, both for our clients and for ourselves, and we won awards right across the spectrum for the different sectors that we work in. Today I'm absolutely delighted to have Hazel, Malcolm and Diane join us. We've worked with all three of them for quite a while now, for a number of years, and known them all for a number of years. And over the years they have each become clients, and I'm very grateful to them. We've got a great collaborative, they're all very collaborative and great relationship builders themselves, and we've built a great relationship with them, and particularly around things like social media, but it's usually part of an integrated campaign. So whilst today is all about social media, I think it's important that we understand that social media doesn't happen in a vacuum, and sometimes we'll get a call from a potential client saying, look, oh, we must get onto Twitter, or we need to understand how this TikTok thing could work for us. And actually, you know, I wouldn't get too het up about social media being the next best thing since sliced bread. I think it's about, well, does that fit with your strategy? Like any business tool. So probably people doing my job make a lot of money making it much more complicated than it actually is, and it's really not. You know, we were talking earlier about what's the etiquette for video conferencing and on social media, but actually the normal rules of business really apply. It is absolutely common sense. And in terms of the results that we've achieved, we've absolutely taken that approach with all of these clients. So Hazel is Sales and Marketing Director for Cruden Homes, and Hazel has been with Cruden, believe it or not, for 15 years. She obviously started when you were 12, Hazel.
Obviously, very hard to believe. It's a good moisturiser.
And Hazel has been working on driving forward not just Cruden Homes but also the Cruden Group brand, and is absolutely key in terms of driving forward the sales and marketing for the joint venture that Cruden have got with the Clue on Queensberry properties, some very nice high-end properties there. Outside of work, Hazel is a keen traveller, although obviously had her wings a little bit clipped over the last wee while, and spends a lot of time outside of work with her two daughters, they're 4 and 8, and she's been saying that in lockdown you've been keen looking at some birds in your garden and keeping an eye on that wine fridge, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Self-confessed twitcher and wine drinker. It can only be uphill from here.
Great, thank you. Malcolm, we've known for several years too. Malcolm spent 30 years in the timber frame industry, and when he joined Scott Frame, he appointed Perceptive to deliver PR, social media and public affairs, and that's now been for well over a year. Malcolm's one of these people he's a sales director for Scott Frame, but he really understands the power of relationships and is absolutely brilliant in terms of mobilising his team to really deliver that, and that's, I think, because of his collaborative and relationship building approach. And we've done some LinkedIn training with Malcolm's team, and the results have been absolutely outstanding, and I think it's because the team have really got behind it, and that's because of Malcolm really. Malcolm's challenge is to grow Scott Frame, which is a really successful brand in Scotland, but actually to take that across the UK, and we're having some really great successes using a variety of tools across social media like LinkedIn, Twitter and Facebook. Outside of work, Malcolm's a keen cyclist and apparently has cycled from the west, I'm not sure which direction, but from the west to east coast, I think, of England, 163 miles in a day, Malcolm. Well, that's very impressive.
Thank you. Good shorts and a soft saddle is tip for that, I have to say.
Good. And Dr. Dan Harbison, we, as I say, it was 5 years since we worked with her at BioCity, and since then Dan's done a few different roles, including Chief Exec at Precision Medicine Scotland, and that for me really kind of opened my eyes into tailored medicine for your particular genetic makeup. So this is completely, you know, transformational in terms of medicine and treatment and the health of everyone. Dan has gone on to become founder and chief exec of an organisation called Decipher Analytics, and that's a precision medicine startup which is focused on using big data and applying that to health. So basically creating a disease common set, which means that you can break down the data and use things like artificial intelligence and machine learning really to get really great drug discoveries. So, and outside of work, Diane has acquired a dog, I think, here in lockdown. So we've been told that if we hear any howling, that's coming from the dog and no one else.
Yeah, the dog has a penchant for howling at sirens, and as I live quite near to the fire station and on the ambulance route, he has lots of opportunity to express himself. So
brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to launch another poll for you to have a wee. It's just one question on this one, so just will give us a flavour of the kind of channels that you're being active on. Okay. Okay, well, I think we can see the clear winner there. LinkedIn, interestingly, Instagram. I'll just end the polling and let you see the results of that. So, can everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so LinkedIn by far the highest, but interesting, I think that, yep, Instagram's just edging it over Facebook. So I think that's a really interesting one. Leslie, do you want to say a bit about Instagram and the stats at the moment?
Yeah, so Instagram and TikTok are seeing a bit of a moment in the sun, so engagement's up 25% on both of these channels. I don't know if you, like me, are getting roped into doing TikTok videos with your kids at the moment, so yeah, TikTok seems to be a bit of a favourite at the moment. So
Good. Okay, so in terms of the kind of support that we're providing, this is for ScotFrame, so it's just to give you a wee flavour of what we're doing with ScotFrame, and you can see that there's a real consistency across the different channels, and ScotFrame is using on LinkedIn a lot of video content, which seems to be working very well. Interestingly, generally, video content struggles a wee bit on LinkedIn, but I think the key is to test, test and test. In terms of cruising, it's across all the 3 channels, and Hazel will come on to talk about that as well. And Diane, we've featured particularly in terms of LinkedIn. Diane uses it really, really effectively and is going to share some learning with her. So really just over to the panel. Diane, can I get you to start on how you were using social media before the lockdown and what's changed now, please?
Yeah, of course. So thank you, Julie, for asking me to take part. I think my education in social media really came from working with Julie and Leslie, and I think that really gave me the ability to understand how we could really use it, particularly now as a CEO of a startup company, pre-revenue startup company, so not an awful lot of money to do much with. So social media is really, really important for us. And I think, so we predominantly use LinkedIn and Twitter, with my preference is LinkedIn. And the changes really during lockdown are around content. So as Julie said, we're a precision medicine company, and by and large, viruses and other infectious agents don't really care about what your genetic or ethnic makeup is. They infect people pretty much indiscriminately, although there was some news this morning on the news that suggested that certain ethnicities might have worse outcomes as a consequence of this COVID infection, which is quite interesting. So really, the change has been around content. Most things that you look at on the channels that we used to find interesting content on are really focused on COVID now. So we look at things like, is there a new approach to treating diseases like multiple sclerosis? Has a precision medicine company been invested in? What conferences are people going to? What grants are people applying to? And that's the sort of thing we were posting on our channels. And so really, the biggest challenge for us is to find something interesting about precision medicine that isn't related to COVID. And I think for us, as I said, because we're a startup company, really using LinkedIn has really enabled us to use it as a way of raising our profile. So we're looking for investment, we're looking for collaboration partners. So for us, talking about the different things that we can do with the data in Scotland, different events that we're going at, different things that we've been selected for, have really helped us to raise our profile. And that's really predominantly what we're trying to do using social media. I think for things that have worked particularly well for us are where we talk about things that relate directly to us as a company, as an organization. So when we got into the RBS accelerator, we got a huge number of views on our post. When we posted that we got into EIE, we got a huge number of views on our posts. So generally, I would say we get between 300 and 500 views of posts every day. But when we post about things that are more personal to the founders of the company, we get a huge spike in views. So when we posted about us getting into the Investing Women final, we got over 3,500 views on our post. It was literally just a picture of me, no links, nothing else. We got views from potential customers in the form of drug companies, 80 reactions, 11 comments. So that sort of content where it's a bit more personal and maybe slightly less corporate tend to go down really well.
Brilliant, then. And I'm really interested that, you know, it's quite clear you're not just doing that for its own sake or any sort of vanity, and I think that sometimes gets in the way of people using it. I think they feel that they don't want to be come across as the big I am, but you're clearly linking it back to strategy, to talk, you know, to try to get some key message across to or groups like investors. So well done you.
Yeah.
Malcolm, are you okay to share what you've been doing?
Yeah, certainly. And again, thank you for inviting me to be part of this, Julie. Much appreciated and happy to support. Scott Frame, I think Julie mentioned, Scott Frame worked with Perceptive for just about 18 months now. And at the beginning of 2019, we had no real social media engagement or platforms or training, etc. So it was seen as a method of supporting our brand awareness for the wider community, the wider industry that we wanted to be part of. So we were, you know, before lockdown, we were promoting our products, our services, and also, which we found quite important, is to just inform of other services and information within the industry to the wider public. So one of the things we've found over lockdown is that the home building and renovation, self-build beginner's guide and home school that they were promoting is got good traction in the media, in LinkedIn, to advise people of what's available and what support's out there. So not just about us, but also the wider industry. And I think that's crucial, especially with things like the reaction to Grenfell, where fire is a huge issue, bone of contention, and you know, the English government is looking to reduce the height of buildings using timber frame, and that's brought the industry right out. So that's kind of what we were using it for, to really to our brand plus the wider industry. I think what we have maintained the majority of that, but also during lockdown, we've now seen the positive messages about that we're still going to be here, that we're planning to come back, you know, once we're allowed to and it's safe to do so. Been very transparent in our communication, which I think has got good feedback from the viewers, and that the health and safety of our staff and customers was at the forefront. It's less about trying to make money out of it. It's about caring for the welfare of us and others and the general public. So it's just to reassure that also that we're in a decent position and will be able to come back and still be around when the lockdown is eased. So. And
how has that landed with your audiences, Malcolm?
The feedback has been when I mentioned transparency, we've been regular updates from Scotland and our wider group, Saint-Gobain, about what we're doing, and I think that's where we've seen the reaction, where that's been welcomed, and feedback on the messages and the posts and the likes have been about that. It's like good that you're communicating that what your plans are, what you're coming back, when you're coming back, or plans to come back. So yeah.
And you've actually even had some sales interest, haven't you, through social media?
Yeah, and we've actually pretty much maintained our inquiry levels. We haven't seen a huge drop. And whilst we've had to put people on furlough, we've actually had to bring estimators back into the team, probably earlier than we expected, because we've seen the level stay, and LinkedIn has to be part of that to communicate that we are still working. So.
Great. And Hazel, what's your take on how you were using social media before all of this, and how LinkedIn's maybe helped with some of that?
Thank you for having me, Julie. It's a refreshing change of virtual scenery today. Prior to lockdown, well, I should start by saying Credon's actually relatively new to social media. So obviously we embarked on this journey about 18 months ago, I guess similar time frame to the one Malcolm explained. And pre-lockdown, it was very much, I guess, a strand of a wider communication strategy, very structured really to a degree, pre-planned activity, you know, schedules, we knew what was coming, and it was a consistent sort of stream of business activity, which was effective. But if I'm entirely honest, it probably was secondary to more traditional public relations activity, both in terms of budget and time allocation. Whereas post-lockdown, and as we find ourselves in a completely new world and different scenario, it has become by far the most valuable communications tool that we have. So with the environment changing so quickly, what it's allowed us to do is, you know, have a greatly enhanced reach to all of the key stakeholders of our business, be that you know, retail customers, business to business audiences, and even staff. We're seeing greater engagement on our social media channels from staff, whether they're still working or whether they're furloughed. So it's been pivotal, I think, in letting people know that we're still open for business, and we haven't shut up shop. And it's been really great for allowing us to signpost time critical messages about closure of sites, or how we're handling sales inquiries and things like that. And as I mentioned before, the listening element of it, I was quite surprised that only 9% of people in the poll said that they'd been using it to monitor what other audiences were saying, because we have found it a hugely valuable tool in terms of gathering market intelligence.
Great. And anything, I think we've covered some of what's worked particularly well. So Hazel, maybe just to come back to you, is there anything you think we should avoid or consider carefully?
Yes, plenty to consider carefully and plenty to avoid. I think the commercial consideration is a point, you know, an important one. You know, this is actually critical to achieving some of your commercial objectives if you do it properly. So just to give an example, you know, we've spoken already about profile raising, and you know, that's great. Also allows us to demonstrate what our core values are, and particularly now that has been important. And what we found, haven't we, Leslie, over the course of the last few weeks, is that it's very clear the sentiment of the audience just now. So posts that have been performing really very well have had a clear theme of kind of health and well-being of staff, or supporting the NHS. So by listening carefully to what the audience is saying, you're able to shape your content and maximise on that opportunity.
We're seeing massive spikes, aren't we? You're getting about 4,000 impressions when we're getting posts related to that. And it's listening to the audience and where they're at the moment as well. Yeah, so I think key in that is not posting for posting's sake. You know, it's about it being relevant, relatable, and authentic. I think that's really important as well at the moment. The tone of voice is important, and that posts shouldn't be too verbose or businessy. They should be truthful and real. And it's interesting, I mean, it's quite amusing really. We spend an awful lot of time planning what we think to be really well considered blog content, to find out that an image of a dog at someone's keyboard is going to perform so much better, because you know, that is the real world that everyone is experiencing right now. So we've definitely been trying to avoid some of the drier content, and you know, look more at what people are really going to relate to. And also on the retail side of the business as well, talking about, you know, customers
been really key to let them know, as I said before, that we're open for business. In fact, we've had huge success in the last couple of weeks. We've been able to use the various platforms for promoting specific campaigns, and been able to secure reservations on some difficult to shift plots. And my colleague Liz, who many of you will know in the West, had a tremendous success, securing 80% reservations and final release just last week. All of this whilst we're in lockdown, and social media has played a key role in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's allowed us to listen to customers as well, because we're informing them through social media channels and then having that conversation with them, whether it be sales agents, and we're getting these nuggets of information. We're having more of a conversation with them and getting useful research for the business as well, which will help commercially.
Agreed.
So one of the questions we had was about, I guess a couple of questions were, one about what sort of tone of content, and sometimes it can be seen to be a bit anodyne. So what about the tone of the content and how often? And the great thing with social media is that, and you've all referred to this, is that it's very measurable. You can see pretty much instantly what's working and what's not working. It allows you to test different things, and things that you might think work well might not work so well, and vice versa. So Diane, I know you've got some views on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think LinkedIn is a business platform, so I think the content that you post should be business related. And I think if anybody thinks that their post is insipid, well, then you're not posting the right content. I think for me, what we do is that we generally post something related to precision medicine on our company page. And then generally what I do is to comment on what we've posted. So for example, if Roche or another pharmaceutical company releases a new drug that treats MS, we post that on our company page. And then on my own personal LinkedIn account, I will make a comment about the fact that Scotland has one of the highest prevalences of MS in the world. So you can do things using both your own personal account and your company account that can make your posts much more interesting. Because we've just started up as a company, our number of followers on our company page is relatively small. I've got a much larger following on my own personal LinkedIn page, but that drives people to our company page and to look at what we're doing, and drives them to our website, which, as Hazel said, lets people see about your values and what you are doing as a business. So I think for me, I don't want to see pictures of your dog on your keyboard. Sorry, Hazel, that's not what I want to see. Put that on Instagram, put that on TikTok. I'm quite happy with that. I think there are really interesting things that you can do on LinkedIn. That means it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be insipid. You can generate some really, really interesting conversations just by posting things that are relevant to you or your business, or impact you or your business. And I think if you're going to do more jokey, less formal things, then there's other platforms that I think are much more appropriate for that. And I would also say, really thinking about humor and your interests, again, and particularly your political views, again, that's something that I would really steer away from. I tend not to post anything that's too political or too controversial. When there's things that are announced that I think we should have a view on, then we do. So not in my current role, but in my previous role, there was an announcement from Dame Sally Davis about people having their genomes sequenced when they had particular diseases. For us in Stratified Medicine Scotland, that was a really important thing that validated that understanding more about your genome would help to inform your treatment. So I posted an article on LinkedIn supporting that decision and explaining why. So I think, there are things that are more political that you can say, but by and large, I tend to stick to quite businessy type things.
Okay, great. I think those are some really good points. And Diane, you use LinkedIn a lot, and you use it really effectively. One other question we had was about how much time do you need to put into this, and what's good timing for posts?
Well, I tend to post just once a day from both Twitter and from LinkedIn, and I know kind of the perception is that you should maybe post slightly later on Twitter than you do on LinkedIn, but actually I post both of them at the same time, and it's just for convenience that I get up in the morning and the first thing I think about is what am I going to post on social media today. And I think I'm much more opportunistic than necessarily having a strategy about what I'm going to post and when. So I generally tend to look through things that have been released, press releases, things in the BBC, things in other scientific sites, and find something that I think is interesting. But there are occasions when we might want to do a campaign. For example, at the end of this month, on the 30th of May, it's MS Day. So we might do something a bit more around MS and treatments for MS, and maybe develop some infographics, and having much more of a formal campaign than I tend to do at the moment.
Great, thank you, Diane. Malcolm, anything to avoid or consider?
Avoid certainly over posting. Can be a big turn off, I think, for viewers. You know, with the help of Perceptive, we've gone from posting every day to posting every other day. It's certainly, and we've actually found our engagement increase through that. So that's definitely something. I think we've got a slightly bigger team maybe than Diane. So getting our team on board, and that's why we had the training with yourselves to get them encouraged to post, and we've seen a huge uptake in our staff creating content themselves. Good to have it, you know, not approved as such, but make sure that your company know that you're doing it and what it's about, so they can latch onto it and post it and comment on it, and you get that bigger traction. So that's something that we found a real positive. And I think don't be scared to try things in different forms on different platforms. We don't post the same thing necessarily on LinkedIn as we do on Facebook or as we do on Twitter, because we've found through trial and error that things react better on certain platforms. Facebook can be, as Diane said, a bit more, you know, light-hearted and can be a bit more fun, whereas LinkedIn is very much, we use it very much as a business tool as well. So, you know, if we're posting or reposting you know, wider industry pieces, then that would probably be more on LinkedIn than it would be on Facebook. Whereas the Facebook would be certainly a lot of information on our team, our people, you know, that personal side of the business, and works really well as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we generate quite different content for the various platforms. Facebook, and to a lesser degree probably Twitter, have been very effective for the home side of the business. Great platforms, and again, really valuable as we've tried to bring show homes into the front rooms of people all over Scotland as we continue to try to sell houses. So that very sort of visual led interaction, whereas LinkedIn, people related posts, appointments in particular, anything to do with CSR, any kind of charitable events that staff have been involved in, and also particularly any skills training and apprenticeships usually do really well and generate a nice kind of spike in followers and good strong engagement.
Great.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Sorry. One other thing I would say is analyse the feedback. It's great to post all this, it's fantastic, but if you don't analyse the data, you could be missing the trick.
Yeah, and to be fair, you know, we work with clients in a range of different ways, and obviously we're working very closely with yourself and Hazel to develop the strategy, to set the measures and review that on an ongoing basis. But, you know, Diane, you're able to have a look at your stats as well. So again, just coming back to what I said before, you know, don't be bamboozled by all of this. This is just another business tool, in the same way as you would check whether another business tool was working for you. It's actually fairly easy to look at the stats, and some clients that we work with, I do some work on a one-to-one basis with people, and they're saying, so where do I start? What's my starting point? And actually it kind of doesn't matter. I think it's about putting a starting point as a benchmark and then working from that, and you can always change it going forward. So just moving on to some LinkedIn tips. In terms of the priorities during lockdown, I think we talked about this already. really make sure that you're not doing this in a vacuum. I know we're in lockdown, but how does this support you? So one of the polls we had at the beginning, most people are looking at this both from an organisational and a personal perspective. So what are your goals from a business perspective? What are your goals from a personal perspective? I've been teaching people how to use LinkedIn for probably 10 years now. I've trained over 1,500 people. It's been hugely helpful for them and for me personally and for Perceptive. And the people who we've worked with have a one-pager of why are we doing this and how does this support our goals and what we're going to do, what are the priorities. And it doesn't have to be War and Peace, but actually having that. They have developed their LinkedIn profile, the people who've done well with this, and we'll come on to that, and that there's regular content. So we'll come on to that as well. So for me and for Perceptive, it's absolutely key to our growth strategy. I know we've had a massive bump in the road across the piece with COVID-19, but our general direction of travel over the last 14 years has been growth, and hopefully on the other side of this we'll continue to grow. We're a small business and we want to be effective and efficient, and it's a really effective and efficient profile raising tool. When I started using LinkedIn about 10 years ago, I was coming back after my second maternity leave, and I just frankly was overwhelmed. I couldn't do everything that I wanted to do. Before I had kids, I was doing one networking event a week. I just couldn't sustain that and do all the other things that I was trying to do. And obviously in lockdown, those events are not possible, even if you wanted them to be. So I changed my strategy to doing one networking event a month. But actually, I've managed to stay more top of mind because we're positioning ourselves on the issues that matter to our contacts and clients and our influencers. And it just comes back to, analysing the feedback. The great thing for me about LinkedIn particularly is it's really, really flexible in terms of time. So I use a tool called Hootsuite. My colleagues use a tool called Sprout Social, both of which are pretty straightforward. There are free versions of Hootsuite. So it's a free version actually I use of Hootsuite, and we pay for Sprout Social for monitoring. But that allows you to post across a number of different channels. It also allows you to schedule in posts, which can be really useful. Another thing to bear in mind is that often people are on LinkedIn outside of normal office hours. And interestingly, during the lockdown, the pattern has changed. So the best time to post for certain content in our experience with our clients was between 8 and 9 on a Tuesday and a Thursday morning. That's actually pushed a bit more towards between 9 and 10. I think it's probably because people are having a bit of a longer lie during lockdown. So as I say, it's about us supporting our growth and positioning us as a thought leadership in the 3 key areas that I mentioned before. Won't it be brilliant when we can go back to these awards nights, especially when we won that was the Head of Property Awards, I think last year. But for the time being, we're not going to be able to do that. So what are the tools? And it was interesting that Hazel was saying, these social media all of a sudden has become so much more important and crucial because you don't have these. And even on the other side of lockdown, I'm not sure that I would want to go into a room of 2,000 people in the same way that I would have done without a second thought before, and I'm sure I'm probably not alone. So, it allows us to, this is a photograph of me delivering some LinkedIn training at CSIC, actually it allows us to do this, but in a much more cost-effective and time-efficient way. And I think the whole video conferencing thing has been a complete revolution. And I think you'll see a lot of people not commuting as much. Before lockdown, we worked from the office 3 days and from home 2 days. And I think we might see a shift in that as well. And really, that has a massive impact in terms of quality of life, and being able to use things like LinkedIn at a time that suits you and use the tools at a time that suits you. It frees up all that family time, which I think has become even more important and on people's radar. So second kind of key point is making sure that you've developed your profile. This shouldn't take you too long. It's pretty intuitive, but we can help with this. We can provide some one-to-one support with this. And what I would encourage you to do is to think of this as your own little personal website. You're in complete control of this. So Leslie deliberately has under her profile the keywords that people would search for her on. And we're also promoting this communication series, so we've got that. So that's what the top of Leslie's individual profile looks like. Contact details, that's really personal preference. So if you're trying to sell your services, I would encourage you to have your contact details on there. It's not difficult to get people's email addresses really these days, and possibly even phone numbers. But if you're someone who's going to be sold to, then you might not want to have that. But again, that's all within your control. And make sure you're posting regular human content on there as well. And there is a bit of a debate about what's maybe a bit more a bit less anodyne than others, but again, it's what works for you. The one thing that I think is often overlooked is the company page, and Dan talked about taking content from the company page, and actually that's been a really useful tool when we've been working with clients, that in terms of a stepping stone for people, so employees are 14 times more likely to share content from their employer than any other content. So that's a great opportunity, and that's worked really well for ScotFrame as well. So it's an easy way of people, taking the content. They can just click share, which is really easy, or they can put a comment on it. And it's just a really great way to ease your employees in. Just some examples of content that's worked pretty well for us. And I think another important point to mention is that only 1% of users on LinkedIn are posting on a weekly basis. So that for me is an amazing stat and an amazing opportunity for people with views. So you'll see the first one, which is an article that Leslie wrote for the Scotsman about using social media during lockdown, and this is part of the whole series of communicating effectively at this time. There's 12 likes on there and 1 comment, but 547 people have seen that. Now that's a massive ratio. And Leslie, you were saying that I think 6 people have commented in your share.
Yeah, and also got quite a lot of private messages around it as well. So, having the team kind of sharing that, it's expanding the reach all the time, and just making our visibility greater for that. So it's all very helpful.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great way to build relationships and to show your support we show our support for our clients and key influencers and partners all the time. And this is a really good example where Nicola Barclay from Homestead Scotland posted something, we agreed with it, and this is maybe back to Diane's point, but is it too political? Possibly not. But this is a view of someone that we share, so we have shared that, and there's some really good guidance in there. And although only 2 people liked it and 1 person commented on it, you think, well, that was only 3 people who saw it. Actually, there's 386 views of it, and that's within a week. And Leslie's one, that was just appeared in the Scotsman 2 days ago, so that's 547 views. And we have had other things, as Dan had mentioned earlier, when you do personal things, we've had like 4,000 views of posts. And the last one I'm just going to share, so that if you're looking for examples of, people who are using this really effectively, so Simon Community is an organisation we've supported on a pro bono basis for some time now. They're doing amazing work with homeless people. I can't imagine how hard it must be not having a home at this particular point. But Tricia Emery, who actually has got a background in marketing, is using her LinkedIn profile really just to give a bit of insight of what's going on for her at the moment, and how what things she's doing to kind of take care of herself at this time. And she's using some photos. This was her up the Old Patrick Hills, and it's just really straightforward. That post probably took her about a minute to post, in her photographs that she probably would have had anyway. But it's a great way of just giving really good content that's human as well. Now, often when we do training with people, they say, well, okay, I'll go away and blast my LinkedIn profile and get it in shape, and then I can forget all about it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work quite like that. So like diet and exercise, it's little and often, and I can't emphasize that enough. So it doesn't have to be every day. It absolutely doesn't have to be every day, but every other day, certainly keep on top of it. So think of it as a relationship building tool. So, you wouldn't not speak to somebody for weeks, and expect them to be able to do you a favour. So, keep that dialogue going, and your audience are out there, as you can see now more than ever before. So there's a great opportunity there. And I'm sure some of you are probably too young to remember black lace, but I certainly remember them. This is not the hokey cokey. Once you're in, you're in. And if you want to make it work for you, you really need to be in and to feed social media, particularly LinkedIn, because it'll actually be worse if you don't keep up to date. And the worst thing is when you have a LinkedIn profile and you don't have your photograph on there. LinkedIn profiles with a picture are 20 times more likely to be viewed, and they're 36 times more likely to receive messages. The other thing though is when we do LinkedIn training in a group setting, the things that people read into someone who hasn't posted a photograph on there is incredible. So people read, you know, we're humans, we're not necessarily very rational or scientific. So usually when people, either they say, you know, they've got something to hide or they just can't be bothered. But, you know, most of the reasons given when you don't put your photograph on there are pretty negative, and I'm sure probably not what you would be looking for. So how can we support you? We would be delighted to help you or your company with either hands-on or off social media support, and we can do that for paid for campaigns through, you know, LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, and also organic, which is free. So any free content that we can basically just help you prepare, or we can develop the strategy, write the content as we do with Scott Frame and Cruden. We can also provide training, and we can do that through Zoom, either one-to-one or in groups. And I would really urge you to join the LinkedIn group and to be as interactive on that as possible. We're also offering a free 30-minute consultation about how you might use social media, so that's available from next week through info at Perceptive Communicators. And also across my team, I'm very fortunate that I've got some really great expert communicators who've got experience. What we're finding during lockdown is that we're expanding the audiences that we're speaking to and the kind of tasks that we're doing. So, you know, whether it's speaking to investors rather than the media, or, you know, looking at websites, we're doing lots of different things. So now on to the Q&A.
So we've had a few questions coming in, and a lot of the questions you guys have addressed throughout, but a couple more that have just come in. So what counts as a view? Is it just a scroll past or an engagement? Julie, do you want to pick that up?
Yes, so a view could be a scroll past, so that you should be looking at views and engagement levels, so you would drill down into that. So if we're talking about LinkedIn, you can drill down into your results and you can see what engagement. So if people click through to certain, you know, you might want them to click through to your website, so you can use the analytics on things like LinkedIn to be able to see that.
Okay, and Malcolm mentioned about avoiding overposting. How often should we aim to post on a business page on LinkedIn?
We've dialed that back, haven't we, Malcolm?
Say that again, Julie, I missed that.
We've dialed that back, haven't we?
Yeah, we were daily, I think, at one point, bar the weekends, but we're now every other day.
Yeah, so I think we're finding 3 to 4 times a week seems to be a good sweet spot on company pages on LinkedIn at the moment.
Yeah,
across the piece.
We're the same. 3 needs to be kind of the optimum. Max 5 if you had something you really felt, I guess, you needed to get out, but 3 seems.
So I'm the outlier in that I post every day. I think it's something in the absence of being able to go out to events or being able to promote ourselves by being out and about. I think for us, the LinkedIn postings that we do from our company page are really, really important to show investors that we're still going, to show potential collaborators that we're still interested in collaborating. So I think for us, because of the stage of the business that we're at, posting every day is really important, but we do just post once a day. We don't post multiple times. And I think that's important in that, you know, if there's a specific campaign around, you know, I think March was Brain Tumor Awareness Month, we would try and post things that were in relation to that particular thing. So I think it depends what you're trying to achieve with your posting. If there's a campaign that you're doing, then you may want to post every day. If it's just general updates or non-specific types of posting, then perhaps several times a week is appropriate. I think it just depends upon you and your business and what kind of what kind of content you can generate.
Yeah.
Because I think posting the same kind of things over and over just gets really boring. Whereas if you've got a campaign and you can put different types of content into a campaign, you know, when I worked with Julie and her team at SMSIC, and we put campaigns together towards particular liver diseases and things, there was a pattern of posts that we were building up over a period of weeks. And so you have to have that strategic oversight into what you're doing and why, and therefore what kind of posts you'll be putting online.
Yeah, and I think that's where the analytics is so important, because it is different for each company and audience. So tools like Hootsuite and Sprout, as Julie mentioned, are really important to test and see what works best for you and your company. Okay, a couple more questions. Is it better for news to come out through company page and then shared by employees, or should you encourage employees to post directly onto their personal page?
Malcolm, did you have a point you wanted to raise there?
No, it was just a final thing just to say that we will do ad hoc posting, if a bit like as Dan said, if there's something that comes out that we want to support, then obviously we can flag it up and we put a post out, which means we might do more than just the 3 days.
Yeah.
But it depends on what comes out of the industry, really.
It comes back to relevance, doesn't it? If it's relevant and relatable, then it makes sense. Otherwise, in an age of information overload, I think you just can begin to become invisible.
Yeah. Okay, and sorry, Leslie, you'd asked about posting. Is it better to post from a company page or a personal page, and what's the best order of that?
Yes.
Again, I'm encouraging you to test that. So company pages. Another thing to take into account is that the algorithms for the different social media channels change over time. So LinkedIn algorithms are constantly changing, but I know that posts from personal accounts are performing better than company posts, and I guess that maybe backs up, you know, what you think maybe intuitively, that people maybe buy more from people than companies as well. So yeah.
Okay.
So one more question, then we'll just go to the final poll, if that's okay, Leslie.
Yep, sure. So quick question, where and when would you recommend recruitment posts?
Anyone have a view on that?
I think LinkedIn. You know, I think most of the people I know who are looking for roles, given the current situation, are using LinkedIn to look for those opportunities. You know, we've seen a lot of posts from people who, because of the current pandemic, are either furloughed or have unfortunately lost their job. So I think using LinkedIn as a profile, as a way of raising your own personal profile, particularly if you're job seeking, and if you're an organization that's looking for people, then I would certainly say LinkedIn's the way to go.
I would agree LinkedIn is the most logical, but it may also depend on what the role is.
Yeah.
Because you have to think about who, you know, where the demographic may be. So if it's a labourer, you know, that they possibly aren't going to be going to LinkedIn for looking for opportunity.
Certainly when we're recruiting for apprentices on Cruden, Facebook works an absolute treat. A lot of shares, but LinkedIn also works very well. But yeah, you're right. It's thinking about the role and the audience.
Okay, I'm just going to launch the last poll, and if you don't mind voting, please. Brilliant. Right. Okay, just in the interest of time, we'll end that. So yes, absolutely delighted to say 100% of people found the webinar useful and worthwhile. So that's great. So I'm just conscious of time. So thank you so much to the panelists. Really, really appreciate all the great things that you've shared and the insights that you've shared, and I found it really useful, and hope everyone else in the audience does too. Our next event is 3 weeks today, which will be about the how do we think about communications as we emerge from lockdown, and what's the tone of voice And I know we touched a little bit on that today, but we'll go into that in a lot more depth. That's on the 28th at the same time, Thursday the 28th, 1 till 2. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Leslie.
We will be sharing the input from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much.